the light through the cracks. There was a silence in the house that screamed louder than any cry. A deep, aching stillness that clung to the walls like dust. The photographs on the mantel, once symbols of love and togetherness, were now relics of time that seemed like it belonged to someone else's story. In that silence lived Zainab, a woman in her late 40s, seated in a corner of her modest home in Hyderabad. She stared at the prayer mat in front of her, its threads frayed from years of sujud, soaked in the weight of 1,000 du'as whispered through tears. Her husband, Imran, once the anchor of their home, was now a shadow of himself, drifting through the days with eyes that rarely blinked and a heart that rarely beat with hope. Their children, Arib, 20, and Maryam, 17, had grown up in the midst of a slow storm, watching their family unravel under the weight of something they couldn't name. But this story, like all stories tied to Allah, didn't begin in despair. It began with a seed of light buried deep within the earth of grief. A seed that would crack open, not despite the pressure, but because of it. Years ago, Zainab and Imran had been the perfect couple, both educated, rooted in culture, yet distant from faith. Islam to them was tradition, Eid clothes, weddings, the occasional Quran recitation at a funeral. But it wasn't the breath they inhaled. It wasn't the map for their life. They were modern, progressive, skeptical of too much religion. They worked, traveled, and built a beautiful life. But in their race for a better dunya, they forgot the soul's hunger. Then came a collapse. It started with Imran's job loss. A senior manager at a global firm, Imran was abruptly laid off in a corporate restructuring. The shock hit hard, and pride prevented him from opening up. It's just a phase, he told Zainab. But months passed, then a year. Their savings thinned, and so did Imran's spirit. He turned inward, first in shame, then in anger. He'd lash out at the kids, lock himself in the room, and avoid Salah altogether. The once vibrant man was crumbling under the silence of unanswered prayers. Zainab tried to hold the family together, picking up part-time work as a home tutor, but the burden crushed her shoulders. She'd cry quietly in the bathroom, then put on a brave face for the children. One night, after yet another dinner eaten in tense silence, she stood in the kitchen and whispered through trembling lips, "Ya Allah, is this my punishment? What did I do to deserve this?" But that night, something happened. Unable to sleep, she reached for her old Quran. It was dusty, the pages yellowed. As she opened it, a verse struck her heart with the force of 1,000 suns. "And whoever fears Allah, he will make for him a way out, and will provide for him from where he does not expect." Surah at-Talaq 65:2-3. She froze. Read it again. Tears streamed down her face as the words soaked into her aching heart. It wasn't a punishment. It was a call, a whisper from the Lord of the worlds to return. That night marked the quiet turning of her soul. She started praying again, first once, then twice, then all 5. At first secretly, afraid Imran would mock her. But eventually he noticed. "You're becoming like those religious people now?" he asked once with a smirk. She said nothing, just smiled, a strange light in her eyes. But something in her peace disturbed him. How could she be so calm while everything was falling apart? Arib, their son, had also changed. Once a confident student, he now buried himself in his room, failing classes and withdrawing from friends. He had taken up vaping, and rumors swirled that he'd been caught stealing headphones from a store. Imran exploded when he found out, beating the boy in a rage. That night, Arib stormed out. He didn't come back for 3 days. When he did, he was different. He entered quietly, avoided eye contact, and said just one sentence to his mother, "Ammi, can you teach me how to pray?" Zainab's hands dropped the spoon she was holding. She turned, heart pounding. "What did you say, Beta?" He didn't repeat it. He just sat down beside her and held her hand. Later that night, Arib told her everything. While on the street those 3 nights, he had nearly gotten arrested. But a kind old man at the masjid offered him shelter and food. That man, a muezzin, didn't ask questions. He just sat with Arib and told him stories about Bilal, R.A., Umar, R.A., and the Prophet Muhammad, stories that didn't preach but healed. stories that made Arib weep without knowing why. He had found something that felt like home, and he wanted more. Zainab embraced him, sobbing. Allah is calling you back, she whispered. That was the beginning of their family's second life. They didn't become saints overnight. Imran still resisted. He mocked Zainab's hijab. He laughed when Arib asked to go to the masjid for far. But he was watching. The laughter masked a fear he couldn't name. Was he the only one drowning while the others found lifeboats? Then came the turning point. One evening, Maryam collapsed in school. She had been silently battling an eating disorder and anxiety. The hospital report broke Imran. Your daughter is severely malnourished, the doctor said. Her heart rate is dangerously low. She's been starving herself. That night, Imran stayed at her bedside. Zainab held Maryam's frail hand, tears dripping onto the foretube. Arib recited Surah Yasin softly beside her. The doctor said the next 24 hours were critical. Imran sat slumped in the hallway chair, fists clenched. His baby girl dying. He looked up. For the first time in years, he said, Ya Allah, if you're really there, please don't take her from me. He wept, a grown man, sobbing like a child. Years of arrogance washed away in that hallway. The next morning, Maryam opened her eyes. Recovery was slow, but it happened. Imran changed that day. He began praying again. At first shaky, uncertain, but eventually, he was the one calling Arib for far. The home that had once suffocated in silence now echoed with Quran recitations. They had very little money. They ate simple meals, but their hearts were full. Zainab started attending Islamic lectures and online tafsir classes. She began tutoring Quran to children in the neighborhood. Imran found part-time work teaching math and later opened a small coaching center. Arib gave up his old friends and began volunteering at the masjid that once saved him. He started an Instagram page sharing short Islamic reminders, which went viral. One of his reels reached over 2 million people. Maryam joined Islamic counseling and began writing poetry about Allah's mercy and healing. One night, they all sat together under a flickering light, sharing tea after Isha. Maryam looked at her family and whispered, Do you remember how dark it was? Zainab nodded. But Allah brought us out of darkness into light, like He promised. Imran looked at her, tears glistening. And we thought we were ruined, but we were just being rebuilt. Years later, when Zainab passed away in sujud during tahajjud, her janazah filled the street. Hundreds came. Some had never met her, but were touched by her Quran lessons online. Imran wept beside her grave, but with a heart of peace. Arib, now a well-known dua speaker, gave a short talk after the burial. His voice cracked as he said, My mother didn't just raise children. She raised hearts that knew Allah. She planted seeds in barren soil. And today, you're seeing the trees that grew from her tears. He paused, looking up at the sky. If you're going through pain, through darkness, know that it's not the end. It might just be the beginning. Allah doesn't break you to destroy you. He breaks you to build you. Come back to Him. You're never too far. The crowd was silent, hearts trembling. And somewhere, someone in that crowd whispered their first sincere dua in years. That is the legacy of one family who turned to Allah in their darkest hour. Let this be a call to your heart too. If this story touched your heart, don't wait. Return to Allah today. Open the Quran. Speak to Him in sujud. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. Subscribe to our channel Deen in Minute for more true stories that awaken your soul.